Good afternoon. How are you? It's about 77 degrees according to the Thomas Jefferson weather report, and the wind is about 2 miles an hour, and the sun is out and it's nice, and it's later in the day, so it's especially pleasant. So what's going on in the world? I think it's important to point out when our government gets it right and how it gets it right and whether it does it with class. I'm talking about D-Day at Pointe du Hoc, where Rangers scaled the cliffs in order to make that a successful attack, an incursion that may have literally turned the whole war around. And years ago, Ronald Reagan gave a marvelous speech at that location, reminding the world of who we are and why that battle mattered. And Joseph Biden, he gave a speech at exactly the same location that Ronald Reagan had given his D-Day speech years earlier. And the reading that Biden gave in part was that he exhorted us to stand up to aggression. And here's the key: abroad and at home. It's a recognition of the amazing parallel we have in this election, unlike any in my lifetime, in which we have autocracy versus democracy, in which we have isolated absolutism versus what do you think? What is your franchise worth? What do you think our government should be doing? Now, to be leading a nation, you have to have an objective. I haven't said it for a while, but Aristotle said nothing improves your aim like having a target. And Biden was aiming for that target in his D-Day speech. He said the Rangers across the years, 80 years, are asking us to stay true to what America stands for, to do our job, to protect our freedom and our democracy. That's his speech. That's his belief. His life has been a testament to that. Whereas we have a corrupt opponent who makes light of the sacrifice that men and women have given to this nation to preserve and protect that freedom. Biden stood there with representatives who are our allies. And I think he reminded them that America is back, and that with this election and the defeat of Trump, we become a more reliable ally. We become a force for democracy. We become a force for truth, not lying. We don't aim to negotiate as if this was some sort of financial arrangement, but as people who care to get it right, to assure the standard of civilization, which is judged by how we treat each other. Now, when something like this speech occurs, it takes a couple of days to have its effect. Kind of a 2-day rule. A couple of times on the Hill, when I was involved as a participant in something that was important, I noticed that if on day one something was said or some action was taken, you might get some feedback, but it took 2 days before you had the full measure of whether what had been attempted was resonating with America. Now, Thomas Jefferson, more than being concerned about the weather and his scientific measuring devices, he wrote that ultimately the voters get it right. That was his perception. And I think as I talk to people these days, I think that's the case this time. I think the people have gotten it. I think we're going to see that on election day. And we have to watch and see how the Republicans continue to incompetently steer their dystopic device through the sentencing imminent and the Republican convention shortly after that, because I don't know how you navigate that without the repeated question, how can a criminal who's violated the laws be chosen as our president to enforce those laws when he lies about what he did, shows no accommodation for the jury system, which has been around a while and is considered one of the tested ways, even with all its defects, to figure out what happened in criminal and civil cases. So we have crossed an important step. Should we be upset when we hear or see the most outlandish statements? I don't know if any of you have seen a tape production called The Chosen One, in which Trump, the greatest sinner, is described as the chosen one, and people lay hands on him and light shines behind his head, and he has been designated by God. Well, it's Satan himself, if there's any designation. And I don't think our silent, absent, mythical friends should be treated as a way to decide what to do in a government. One of the recent ones that I saw, which is interesting, is that Mike Pence is accused of being Judas Pence. So by doing his duty under the law and not throwing out the electors who were valid, and failing to do something that would upend the Constitution and sticking by the Constitution, he's considered to betray who? Whom? Trump, America, his oath of office. So Mike Pence, whom they would think to hang at the Capitol, he's called Judas. So here we have a person as if he's Jesus. Could there be anything further from the truth? Selfless, caring about people, risking himself for his beliefs, not self-aggrandizing as Trump is. And then there's another sign that the Republicans have lost their way. In Pennsylvania, there was a gathering, and the Republican representatives in the state legislature booed Capitol Police Sergeant Gonell and Officer Harry Dunn, and you may remember them from the hearings on the Hill. And they risked their lives, literally, and suffered for it to save the Capitol. Now, this is how it starts. People who are heroes, as these two were celebrated in the chambers by others, are instead called something else. So up is down, good is bad, 2 + 2 = 5. And people who fought to save members of the Congress and staff, they are booed and hissed by the Republicans? Who's out of touch with who America is, as described in the D-Day speech of President Biden? Who is trashing the values of America to uphold law and order? What Republicans for years have muttered is their objective: law and order. And what are they talking about? Are they only talking about those against whom they would discriminate?
Heard you 2 nights ago. Keep up the faith.
Thank you.
So appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. I want you to know that that drive-by was not scheduled. So what we have is, we have this toxin, this cancer in the body politic. And we can identify it, and we can isolate it. And the reason we can do that is because it's always the Republicans. And they're doing this, I guess, because they believe it, and or out of desperation, because as I said the other day, you have them in a, excuse me, I ate something and I have these little flakes inside of me that I haven't gotten rid of. That'll teach me. So, if you want to see how badly this can go, and you like Cillian Murphy, you might watch an old film, a couple of years old, called Anthropoid. Now, it's a far way down the road in the Hitler years, after the Allies signed off on Czechoslovakia and just handed it over without a single shot to Hitler. And a year later, Hitler expanded his domain, looking to run over other boundaries. And that's when Churchill, who had been wary and warned, found himself in the leadership, moving on to a date which becomes D-Day. Now, Cillian is one of several parachutists that come down, and their objective is the assassination of a man described as a butcher, for whom he kills and how. It's part of the final solution. It is not where we are, it is where we could be, and it's what we should see, not for the serious entertainment of something that did really happen, but as a warning of what can happen step by step if we're not careful. So, other things that are going on well is that Bannon, the master for Trump, is going to be in custody, and we have more of those who supported false electors. So there are trend lines that favor us winning in November if we just keep working at it. So that's what I've got on the trail through the Cathedral of Trees, and I look forward to talking to you again, and I wish I had a glass of water right now. All the best. Bye-bye.